welcome one and all. It's time for you to hear about a game of The Walking Dead All-Out War, Mantic's out-of-production game. And what makes this particular game, of this game system, unique is that guinea pigs are involved. So you may be aware that Bad Squiddo Games have guinea pig miniatures, among other things. So I've taken it upon myself to make some custom unofficial prototype rules for some of those miniatures to be used in The Walking Dead All-Out War. And this is a kind of a mini little battle report on the first game using some of those miniatures, including, as you can see on the thumbnail there, Dave on the left, who is represented in miniature form when we get to the game momentarily. And in fact, before we do that, I'm just going to make the mouse pointer extra large so you can see what I'm doing. Here we go. Let's crank that all the way up. Right, here we go. Bum bum bum. So, this is side number 1. I believe it's 130 points, something like that. And we reserved some points for upgrades. And my side, which is shown here, does not have any guinea pigs in it. However, if we have a quick look at Annie's force here, you'll see that there are 3 guinea pigs, so we'll get to those in a moment. We'll go through mine first of all, and then a brief rundown of the scenario we're playing. So, you can see that there's one non-Walking Dead character there. This is a miniature from Bad Squiddo, Danuta, also known as Anti-Fascist, I think she's called. Anti as in auntie. And she's a well-known historical figure who walloped a Nazi with her handbag. And she's in miniature form, and I've created some rules for her to be used in The Walking Dead All-Out War. So, her special rule is, "Oi, stop it," but probably not in that accent. So when a friend and an enemy are both in Danuta's kill zone, change her melee to a white dice. So when she sees someone getting beat up, maybe some kind of injustice going on, it makes her more determined, and she's got high nerve as well, representing that. And then for regular Walking Dead characters, I've got my leader, Abraham, so very expensive, lots of wounds, lots of health on Abraham, load of special rules, he's just good at everything. And then a couple of slightly weedier characters. I've got Smitty, who has low nerve, and if he ever takes a survivor out of action, then it negatively affects him because he's got a guilty conscience. So I've given him a handgun, and because he does have a white shoot dice, which is quite good. So a handgun for him, so he can actually be useful. And I'm thinking a gun for him because his nerve is only low. So once you get halfway into the game, he's probably not going to be that useful. So a gun, so he can actually do something early on at range, hopefully. And then we've got Carl Grimes in there with a hatchet. So what I'm thinking is Danuta can support Carl if they run around together. Then it will increase her stats if they're both in combat together with the enemy. So there is some thought put into this little list here. And on to Annie's team here. So I think the leader is Derek. And Derek is quite notable in this game for being for having quite a handy leader ability. So any friendly models that are in his kill zone can use his nerve, which is high. So if you have anyone in your team with bad nerve, for example guinea pigs, and you get them into his kill zone, they could use his nerve. However, there is another way to mitigate the guinea pig's lack of nerve, which I'll tell you about in a moment. There's also Sandra in there as well. She's a runner, and she's got good defense. Medium nerve, so not bad. And you can see just partially covered up there, we've got Raging Annie. And the text is all covered, so I can just tell you the stats. Well, she's got high nerve, obviously, for a start. She's got white dice for everything. She also stops guinea pigs from weeping or Wheeking when they are within her kill zone. So normally all guinea pig actions make noise, because guinea pigs are, of course, very noisy creatures. But if you keep them in Annie's kill zone, then they do not make noise, and also they don't panic while they're in her kill zone. So very similar to Derek's ability. So as long as the pigs are kept in one of those kill zones, they won't panic. 2 of the pigs have low nerve, 1 of them has none, so almost immediately as soon as the game starts, then Carol is going to start to panic. All the pigs' special rules have been chosen to match their personality traits or their physical attributes. So actually first, Annie's got another special rule. She's got the workaholic special rule, which some of you may know is very appropriate for Annie. So she can spend an extra action in a turn, but then in the following turn, she's reduced to just 1 action. So the pigs. Let's start here. We've got Carol. So no melee stat at all, just a big old wuss. He does have a shoot stat though, interestingly, which I'll get to, and red dice defense as well. You'll notice they all have 1 point of health. I was thinking, how can you represent a guinea pig and have it be fairly accurate while also usable in the game? Because in a real zombie apocalypse, guinea pigs would be of questionable value. However, it's not completely ridiculous to put them in there with 1 health and give them some kind of role. It's not the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen in your life. I think 1 health point is very fair. And they all cost 5 points at the moment. These are just prototypes, so they may eventually change if we decide that one of the pigs is slightly too good. So, Carol, of course, all guinea pigs' actions make noise. Useless. Guinea pigs may not equip items, so I think that's very fair. Guinea pigs, obviously, they're not going to be wielding baseball bats or using bandages on themselves. However, Carol does have a shooting attack, a spray attack, and for anyone who's ever witnessed it, she is quite a potent projectile and has occasionally arched over the clear guard around the enclosure that the pigs are in. So, shooting attack, 3-inch range, but no headshot bonus, obviously, because guinea pig spray is not going to hit anyone in the head, and even if it did, it's not going to go straight through the skull into the brain. So the best you can hope for is that it'll just create a puddle at the zombie's feet and make them fall over. It's kind of what that's representing. So you can't kill a zombie with it, but you could make them fall down because it's so slippery. Okay, on to Dave. So Dave actually does have a melee dice because he's a bit more determined. His nerve is only low as well, rather than none. He doesn't shoot though. Special rules, so obviously he makes noise, can't equip items. However, because Dave is a chonker, he can re-roll the defense dice. So for anyone who's seen Dave, you'll be aware that he's quite a large guinea pig. He's definitely a hefty lad compared to other pigs. So he can re-roll the defense dice, and also you may notice slightly under the rulebook there is actually a slot. So Dave can actually carry an item. Because he is a chonker, then I don't think it's too unrealistic to suggest that something could be strapped to Dave's back in battle, and he could carry it around because he's a big strong lad. So he can't use the item obviously, but if for example you wanted to put some ammo on Dave's back and then send him out to one of your teammates, that would be a viable strategy. And then finally we get to Nini, also known as the Weasel. So, Nini is well known for... the reason for the nickname the Weasel is because she's very kind of wiry and strong and can escape from the human grip quite well. So, to represent that, her special rule is Weasel. Nini may move 1 inch out of melee on a roll of a shield. So it's exactly the same as the ability that some of the characters in the game have. Off the top of my head, I can think of Glenn has it. So when they're in combat, they can get out of combat. And if one guinea pig was going to have that rule, this is the one, because she's definitely a weasel. So, uses for that character, potentially, would be to go into combat with something, to tie it up, and then you've got a 50-50 chance of just escaping completely unharmed without even having to defend yourself. So, tying up the enemy, potentially. So we've got a projectile, we've got a survivable potential item carrier, and we've got the weasel weaseling out of combat. So 3 different roles, but all for 5 points each at the moment. So, let's have a look at the layout of this game. And for some of the terrain, it's a bit of a mishmash at the moment, because we haven't got all the terrain we want all painted yet. So, got a nice mat, and we've got some actual Walking Dead vehicles that Annie painted, and we've got a bit Dead Zone terrain. So the story behind this game is that the CPC, the Centre for Pig Control, have been doing experiments and are trying to create a guinea pig strain of the zombie virus. And the pig freedom fighters, led by Annie, have broken in and basically destroyed it and rescued some of the pigs. Or hopefully all of the pigs. But it's now been destroyed. Whether they destroyed it or whether it self-destructed when the pig lab was breached, who knows. But that's why the pigs are now out there in the world. And also, potentially, they could have unleashed that... Unknowingly, they could have unleashed the pig strain of the zombie virus, which wouldn't be very good, but that could lead to some zombie guinea pigs in the future. So, we've got plenty of walkers around the middle, and there are various items here, or various loot that you can search through, try and find some items, and whoever's holding the most of those at the end of the game is going to win, basically. So, I've got Abraham over here, and we've got my other people over at that end. Here we've got all the pigs within Annie's kill zone, so they don't make any noise. There's Sandra and Derek. And then up there I've got Danuta and Carl and Smitty. So keeping those two together to make use of her special rule where she improves her stats. If anyone's watching this live, by the way, feel free to drop comments in there if you've got any thoughts on any of these rules. And just anyone that plays this game system still, in general, be good to hear from you. So, we've got a nice smattering of walkers around, quite a few. And first thing that happens actually is I think Smitty immediately fires a gun, because what I wanted to do, if you look at some of this area here, for example, this walker is touching the car, there's a few walkers around here that are all touching the loot. So Smitty fires off his gun at one of them and then draws the other ones, because of all the noise, away from the loot, so that Carl and Danuta can go and pick some of it up later. So that's why all the walkers are coming this way, towards Smitty. And there's a walker that's been downed there by the looks of it. And I believe, who had the gun in Annie's team? Oh yeah, Derek's got a revolver. And also Annie has a pistol as well, so it could have been either of them. Annie also has bandages, by the way. So there's a downed walker there. And Danuta and Coral get themselves into a combat with a zombie. And you can see the guinea pig swarm, along with Annie, have descended into these walkers in the middle here. So, with all of them teaming up, they're going to be alright, adding their dice together, and Abraham is just going to try and steamroll through walkers on his own because he's just like a big one-man tank, basically. And the threat level is going up because we have been firing guns already. And Abraham just knocks down a walker over here. And the guinea pigs actually knock down a walker as well. So you can see that the Dave miniature there, the reason he's got that red thing underneath him there, that is a tomato, because Dave is well known for taking a very long time to eat a tomato. He likes to pick it up and then put it down again and just sit there guarding it for a while before he actually gets his teeth into it. So, Dave, guardian of the tomato, there's Nini, and Carol, of course, doesn't have a melee ability, so she's just hiding out at the back for now. And look at that, it's dead. So the guinea pigs take down a walker, which is hilarious. Carl and Danuta knock down this one. But then in the next round, they set off a booby trap when trying to search this here. And unfortunately, that means both of them are going to be caught in the blast. So if you're searching for loot, maybe it's not the best idea to have two people right next to it. And look at... it's an outrage. Look at all that damage done. They're both down to their final health point now. So that booby trap really did the work. And that also draws the walkers near because it's such a loud explosion as well. So that's kind of annoying. Smitty is out there and he's been attacked by a walker now. And he did pick up this though. Managed to pick up that loot. So he is carrying that, and he's found some body armor in there as well. So that's going to be useful to him. He just looks terrified, doesn't he? I don't know if this character was represented in the TV series, and I haven't read the comics, so I'm not entirely familiar with him. you can see that the pigs are forming a bit of a roadblock. At least Carol is there, so one of the walkers ends up running straight into her. Because obviously whenever you run, you make noise. So the nearest walker is going to start going towards you. So anyone that runs around here, the walker's going to start moving around. Carol's on the corner, so one of them gets to her and it's going to fight her. Abraham working his way through the walker horde on his own. And Dave actually goes to search the car, which is hilarious. And he finds some bandages, which he can carry, because he can hold one item, being a chunky pig. And look at that threat level. It's got quite high already. We're just firing guns a lot at the moment. And you'll also see that an alarm goes off. So that car alarm goes off, bringing this walker in, and it's now going to fight Dave shortly. So it's unfortunate for Dave being right next to the car alarm that goes off. I don't think a guinea pig would like that very much, being next to an alarm. That's like their nightmare. And then we've got the pictures of the actual attack here. Because obviously guinea pigs only have 1 health point. So the walker gets 1 on the dice. And Dave needed to re-roll his defense dice with the chunker special rule, but he survives. So they just push apart. Abraham knocks down another one. Not a lot of killing going on. Smitty fights off the walker there. And over here, you can see that there is a walker still on Carol. I think Derek actually got wounded by a walker. Yeah, that one. One in the pink shirt. Wounded Derek, which is why he's been pushed away. And this walker that's down, I think Nini might actually kill this guy. The guy who's down on the ground. I think she kind of bites his head off. Because when a walker is prone, then you don't need to score a headshot on the dice to take it down. You just need to do any damage while it's down. Effectively, it's just easy to step on its head and just explode the brains everywhere. But with the guinea pig, presumably when the walker fell over, it hit its head and its brain was just like hanging out, and the tiniest bit of skull was holding the brain in, and then Nini just gives it a quick nibble and the brain just plops out. So she manages to kill a walker, which is hilarious. Carol does get killed though, sadly, by a walker. But Annie was wrestling with this dilemma during the game, deciding whether to draw that walker over, because the action she wanted to do was always going to cause that to happen, and she was agonizing over, does she put Carol at risk, a precious guinea pig who costs 5 points, and she decided in the end, yeah, let's do it, and Carol gets eaten. We're now into medium threat, which means there's going to be lots of panicking, including Smitty and all the pigs if they end up outside of Annie's kill zone. So we've got 2 pigs remaining. That car alarm is going to go off at the end of each turn until someone deactivates it. Abraham finds a lurker in the loot, and obviously his defense dice is really good. It's a blue one, so he's absolutely fine, and he's carrying 2 bits of loot now. And he found a metal pipe. Carl and Danuta, because they both got so heavily wounded by that exploding booby trap, they're just going to hide behind this car mostly now. Nini has gone after this walker. As we were discussing earlier, Nini is actually quite handy for holding up enemies, because she's got a 50-50 chance of just moving away from them when the melee begins, so she might not even suffer for it, which keeps Dave safe. Threat level goes up again though, and Smitty runs out into the open and decides the best thing to do, because Dave is actually carrying a precious item at the moment, he's going to try and shoot Dave with his revolver, which you might think is cruel and unusual, and how realistic is it that in an apocalypse you would try to shoot a guinea pig that's carrying bandages around? Very realistic, of course. So Smitty fires off at Dave, gets 2 on the dice, but look at that, Dave gets an extra dice though, because the gunshot was going across this barricade, and look at that, Dave just rolls like an absolute chonker. So Dave's fine, survives a gunshot, doesn't get hit, and he's still good. Derek makes his way in. And you can see that Danuta has unfortunately been killed now because Derek moved up and shot her. So Derek should probably feel quite guilty about that since she is a beloved historical figure, although she knew what she was signing up for going into the zombie apocalypse. So Carl is on his own there now. And the event at the end of this round is Frayed Nerves. So, one model with low or medium nerve chosen by the player with initiative creates mayhem. And there aren't that many characters with low nerve, but there are a few with medium. Who had initiative at this point? I can't remember who had initiative right now. Might have been maybe one of the Guinea Pigs created mayhem. And actually, I think the walkers were already in there. Annie is now separated by an inch from them, and Nini is still fighting this one. Sandra is sneaking up to this car, trying to grab that loot, but Abraham is around here. So Nini successfully weasels out of combat, so she does her job admirably. And Abraham is touching this car as well, so neither of them can actually pillage that bit of loot there, because there's somebody else in contact with the vehicle containing it. And Smitty panics and just runs away, because he's a big old wuss, which I knew when I put him in my team. It's always quite likely to happen with low nerve. Abraham and Sandra are going to be fighting now, but there is a walker joining in on the side of Sandra, because Abraham's kind of sandwiched between them. And Carl has ducked for cover behind the car, which means he can now no longer be shot by Derek, because that's the safest place for him right now. And you can see how much stuff people are carrying. So Annie is at capacity, I think, with 3 items. Sandra is carrying 1. Dave has handed over his item to Annie at this point. And the game is definitely going to end now, because the threat level has reached so high. And we've got 2 walkers in close combat coming up with Nini. And I believe that Annie used a very sneaky tactic at this point, which was, I think one of the characters, I can't remember if it was Annie or Derek, got to around here, fired a gun, which then caused a walker to come in this direction and actually end up right next to Carl, who's prone because he's hiding behind the car. So you can't shoot Carl directly, but you can make noise which draws a walker towards Carl. I think that's what happened. So you can see there is a walker there. Is it the one that was there? Yes, that one. So yeah, I can't remember exactly where the noise was that caused that. We might see in a different camera angle in a moment. So I'm carrying a few bits of loot as well. If Carl survives, then I'm still in with a chance. But Dave has actually got a couple of walkers on him now. But because Derek's also in there, they're going to split off into 2 one-on-one fights. Look at this. These are the... Who was that? Oh yeah, that was Nini. Yeah, so the 2 walkers on Nini get 2, and she gets nothing on the defense dice, unfortunately. So Nini gets eaten. She doesn't manage to weasel out of combat this turn. So Pig down. Carl down as well, importantly, because he was carrying an item, but he was down to his last wound and he was hiding behind a car. So 1 walker against him actually had a decent chance of killing him. So Carl is dead. Abraham and Sandra can't kill each other. So the game will end at that point. And you can see Annie's hand there for some reason. But Dave is still alive. And yeah, all these people are still alive here. So we've got Raging Annie, Dave and Derek are still alive. And Abraham is still alive, and Sandra. And I think Smitty is still alive. He's just run away to the edge of the playing area. There he is. He's alive. 2 guinea pigs down. Danuta and Carl both down, which I'm mostly putting down to that booby trap that exploded on both of them. So it is actually a win for the guinea pigs, because they are carrying, I believe, let's go back to where I showed the number of items they're carrying. So they're carrying 4, didn't manage to kill Sandra, and I think Abraham is only carrying 2, and maybe Smitty has 1 as well, but because Carl died, then he dropped his on the ground. So it's a victory for the guinea pigs. So, thoughts on the guinea pig custom rules? For them being 5 points, it's tempting to think anything that's remotely useful for 5 points is automatically overpowered. But then I compare it to other things, other characters in the game that have, for example, low nerve, like, what's the guy's name? Is it Liam? The one who just looks terrified and has low nerve and is about 10 points. And a guinea pig is obviously half that, but rather than having a normal human amount of health, which would be about 4 or more, they only have 1. So they're extremely killable. And you do have to pay the Annie tax, really, to take them. Because if you don't take Annie, then everything they do makes noise, and they panic almost immediately. So they're not going to be much use to you. So you have to pay for the Annie, the Raging Annie, with them. So they're kind of like little Annie upgrades, but you can see how they were useful as roadblocks and tying up walkers, and in Dave's case he actually picked up an item and brought it back, like the trusty companion that he is. And surviving a gunshot as well for Dave. Nini killed a couple of walkers as well, which is hilarious. I don't feel like they're too drastically overpowered. We can tweak the points, because obviously they don't all have the same rules, so it's not necessary for them to all be exactly 5 points. In terms of Carol, we didn't really use her special rule because she got eaten too fast. But if you think that those guinea pig rules, one of them perhaps should be more expensive than the others, or cheaper, then let me know in the comments, and we'll take that on board and work on the prototypes further in testing. And Raging Annie, she seems like a very solid choice in The Walking Dead, with her all-round good stats and ability to control the guinea pigs quite well. Seems quite good. Danuta, I think, was going fine if I hadn't stepped on the booby trap and got her almost blown up. I think her combining with another character, running around with them and fighting together, is the best way to get good use out of her. So yeah, it was a lot of fun adding guinea pigs to the game. It does add something. It's funny, obviously, but also you may find yourself getting emotionally attached to your side more if you've got beloved and cherished pets on your team. So it does add a whole new level of intrigue to the game, and it was a lot of fun. So there's going to be more to come. I'm working on rules for more guinea pigs as well, because I haven't done any rules for Karen yet. And we're thinking that she's going to have some kind of rule that makes her better in combat, because she is known to occasionally try and chomp on human flesh. And then I'm going to go through and add rules for now departed guinea pigs as well, because a lot of them had a lot of the departed guinea pigs from the past had unique personalities and physical traits that would be very interesting to make special rules for. So we're going to add those. I'm going to do zombie guinea pigs as well, guinea pig walkers, and they're obviously not going to be as strong as a human walker because it's just a guinea pig, but any kind of bite that you get from a walker, it's going to be bad news, isn't it? So a guinea pig a zombie guinea pig runs up to you, gives you a bite on the ankle, that's just as good as a human walker doing it, really. You're still going to be doomed. So they can't be too useless. So that's going to be fun. And then I'm going to have to paint some zombie guinea pigs as well, which sounds like it's going to be a bit gruesome. So we're enjoying getting back into The Walking Dead All-Out War with these very unofficial rules that have been added. And what I'd like to do ideally is to run a bit of a campaign featuring the guinea pigs, of course, with like a map and different factions on it that you can run into. So I think that would be fun to do at some point. And we're also looking into the possibility of getting an extender kitchen table to facilitate bigger games, or to just more comfortably allow us to play this game on it. Because the current table is not very large. It just about houses a game of The Walking Dead. It could handle probably a game of Dead Zone. Not much beyond that. It's not very large at all, and it's a bit cramped with all the cards, as you can see here. And I don't think... Did I actually use this arrow that much throughout the video? I don't know if I did. The pictures weren't that complicated though, were they? Okay, I think it's time to wrap up this video. Can't believe not one single person has commented, although there are people watching, so I'm reassured by that. People are obviously just so engrossed in the game. And we're almost back to the start now as I've cycled through all the images. There we go. So let's get the thumbnail up again. Now, don't forget to check out all the links in the video description. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, join the Facebook group, Discord server. Don't forget to check out Bad Squiddo as well if you want to get your own miniatures, specifically guinea pigs or a raging Annie perhaps, or anything else that they do. And there is actually a code in the video description for you to get a free chicken with each Bad Squiddo order as well, if you're interested in that, which you definitely should be. And of course, if you want more non-stop red hot sizzling spicy finger licking good content on this channel, battle reports, tournament reports, all kind of fun stuff, then why not pledge your entire life savings to me via Patreon? I think that's a fair way to compensate me for bringing you all this delightful content, giving me all your life savings. I think that's a fair trade, don't you? The amount of enlightenment and entertainment that's being provided to you. And apart from that, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and all that remains to be said is good night out there, whatever you are. Whee!